What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. And as the name of the video suggests, how exactly do you know whether a weapon is going to be a god roll in terms of damage by the time you level it to level 50? That was the objective of this video when I started building this, and it was very much based on the feedback that I got from a previous video where I essentially said that, you know, it's very difficult to get a god roll, and some comments which were in that video which were quite interesting is, you know, how many times have we actually thrown away, or rather dismantled or sold, a low-level weapon which in actual fact possibly could have turned out to be an extremely high damage roll, aka a god roll, and there was just no way for us to know that. So again, like I said, the objective as I started out storyboarding this and creating this video was to see if I could create a at-a-glance table, if you will, that would allow myself and other players to look and see, okay, the weapon is level 10, this is where its damage falls now, and then when I level it to 50, that's where it's going to be. So originally I thought this was going to be a really difficult thing to do, and even some of the comments that I left, people that commented on the video, was I said that this was definitely something that I was interested in putting together, but it seemed like it was going to be quite difficult because I had made certain assumptions, and these assumptions were that different weapons would have different scaling, different weapon variants would also have different scaling, and then lastly, depending on the rarity of the weapon, you would also see different scaling. I would imagine, or at least I thought, that for instance a legendary would have better scaling than an epic or a rare. Now, in fact, all three of those assumptions ended up being wrong, and after doing the analysis and comparing many different weapons to each other, many different weapon types to each other, many different weapon variants to each other, I was able to see that the scaling is essentially the same across the board. Doesn't matter the rarity of the weapon, doesn't matter the type of the weapon, and also doesn't matter if it's a legendary or not. That then means that once I started comparing weapons to each other and that it actually became quite a simple an analysis, if I can put it that way, and creating a formula behind that where I could then essentially look at the damage of a weapon and then essentially map out where its damage would fall when it finally gets leveled to 50 actually quite easily. Now, when we actually look at these two tables, as you can see them here, you'll notice that first of all, what we have is we have a difference whether it's a rare weapon, the damage that you're trying to look up, or whether it's an epic weapon / legendary, because those two kind of fall in the same category. And really the only difference between the two is that if you have a blue weapon, a rare weapon that you're leveling up, you do get that final step where you change the rarity from a rare to an epic, which is essentially an additional damage boost because that provides an additional extra step of damage on top of that. Now, right off the bat, this table here right now, or these two tables rather, as I've created them, I've put them in, you know, incremental levels of 5, and then I've got from 40 to 50, I essentially have them in, you know, in increments of 2. Now, I understand that I haven't covered all of them here, but of course it was also just trying to condense the information. And the point would be that what you can do is make sure that your weapon is at one of these levels, or I mean, you can guesstimate a little bit, but you know, if something's for instance at level 9, you can level it up 1 to level 10, and then you can compare the damage levels, and that's going to generally put them into one of these 4 categories. Now, I just named these categories myself, so the point is that God tier is obviously the best. Really good and good are still extremely usable weapons. I know that I've got a category called usable, but the point being that once you get to the usable category, it's definitely a weapon that will still work. It's not like you're going to be shooting blanks or something like that. But the bottom line is that, as we can now realize, is that there's this kind of like a huge divide between a weapon that deals 84 to 85k overall versus a weapon that deals 95. That's a full 10k extra of DPS, which is noticeable in the game for sure, especially if you're pushing high tier content and you want to deal as much damage as possible. But again, I will say this, that doesn't mean that a weapon that's running at 85 is unusable. And in certain cases, if you have a legendary that's got a good mod, how can I say, combination, then that's still going to be a really good game. Or rather weapon. So for the next part, let's move on over to the game. Now, I thought it would be cool for us to actually take 2 weapons that I have in the game and just test this table, right? So test this information, because I don't just want you to take my word for it and waste precious upgrading materials to realize that it is in actual fact not ending up where you were hoping it was going to be. So in the first case, we've got the Daimyo, which is a submachine gun that I have here that's at level 30. And it's got a damage roll at level 30 of 8,214. Now, if I use the table that I created, then and again, keeping in mind that this is a legendary weapon, so you use the epic/legendary table, and we look, this is at level 30. So if I look at level 30, I can see that the really good tier places it at 8,154 damage, and the guard tier places it at 8,502. So that to me means that this weapon's damage will most likely fall somewhere in between really good and guard tier. So not quite over the 95k or 96k area, but definitely more than 92. In actual fact, looking at this here, I would imagine it's probably going to end up at like 93.2 or 93.3k or something like that. So again, like I said, because I don't just want you to take my word for it, what we can do is we can come over here and we can just start upgrading this weapon, because I want you to see how this table can help you to predict the weapon damage then basically. So let's go ahead and load up the Daimyo. It's on level 30. So I'm just going to blast through these levels right now. So I'm just going to take it all the way to 50. Now, of course, this uses, in this case, titanium and drop pot resources to eventually get me to 50. But there you go. You can see. So this weapon ended up being a 93.2 roll as overall damage once I got it to 50. So the table basically showed us that it was going to end up in between essentially a really good and a god tier weapon, and that is in actual fact what we got. And I have to admit, this is a pretty stinky little submachine gun that I managed to snag here, and I'm very happy with this damage roll. Now let's do the same thing for the second weapon that I have in my inventory here. Now this is a level 10 shotgun that is of the rare rarity. And we can see again using our table that this is a firepower level of 337 at level 10. Using the table and using the rare side, we can see that 337 at level 10 puts it slightly above usable. That means that if I level this weapon up to 50, then I'm going to probably end up with a gun that's about 85k damage in total, or firepower in total. Now, I'm going to still do this for you in this video here, just to again demonstrate the accuracy of these tables. But obviously, generally speaking, I probably wouldn't have spent the resources to upgrade this level, because 85k honestly just isn't that good, especially when it's just a normal generic shotgun. And, you know, it's not even a legendary or something like that. And I don't even have like a very beneficial mod combination on it or something like that. But again, let's go ahead and test the accuracy of the table. So I'm going to choose it. I'm again just going to blast all the way through the leveling. And some advice here. Generally speaking, the conversion from rare to epic should be your last step. So once you get to 50, only then do the conversion. Because that way you will only spend iron to level up the weapon all the way to 50, and then your final step will only use a little bit of titanium to essentially give you an epic weapon. If you upgrade the weapon early to the epic one, you don't lose damage or anything like that, but the bottom line is then you switch the required resource to upgrade this weapon all the way to 50 from iron to titanium, and eventually for the last bunch of levels, titanium and drop out resources. So definitely it's far more resource efficient just to go blue all the way to 50 and then do the conversion, which is exactly what I'm going to do here. So again, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just punch through these levels as fast as I can. Got a bit of a way to go. And once we get to 50, you're going to see. So my maximum level there is 81. But as I mentioned right now, there's one more thing we can do. We can improve its rarity. And that gets me to 85.1. So I said 85.3, but that's close enough. And I'm just going to choose some generic mod here because I don't really want this fucking gun. But okay, so that shows you here that this table should be allowing you to predict damage levels at the top tiers. And this is, of course, very useful if you plan to take your low level characters or your alts and check out the shops. because I've been able to find quite a few low-level weapons there that I then realized by comparing them on this table, realized that they were actually quite high tier, god tier, damage weapons, and I would have never known that otherwise. So this here, take a screenshot, bookmark the video or anything like that. This is my gift to myself and to you. So just an easy way for you to tell whether the damage on a gun is going to be good once it gets to level 50, so that you don't waste any crafting material, don't waste any titanium, don't waste any drop pod resources or anything like that. Now, I am working on a similar analysis for armor, and that'll be up in the next few days as well. Obviously, the idea here being that you can maximize the amount of armor that rolls on a piece of gear as well, and that's just another final way that you can min-max the stats on your particular character. That's it for today. Let me know in the comments and down below if this is useful to you and if this is something that you will be able to use to better your character further. I definitely think that it's actually quite interesting how it turned out that I had assumed that there would be this really complicated way how these weapons would scale, and they would scale with different types and with different rarities, and in the end it's actually quite simple, and that's basically how I was allowed to, or not allowed, but rather able to create this. If you enjoy content like this, definitely subscribe to the channel, because this is the kind of stuff I do, whether it's Outriders or any other game. But until next time, have a great morning, have a great afternoon, have a great evening, and cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me.